kick this meeting off. This is a call to order for the Nacogdoches Planning and Zoning Commission December 13th, 2021 meeting. Please stand with me and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. All right. First off, we have a open forum. In addition to public comment on the specific agenda items, the commission offers an open forum whereby citizens may comment on governance issues over which the city of Nacogdoches has domain. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, members of the commission shall not discuss, deliberate, or make any decisions on topics not posted as an agenda item. Speakers should address all remarks to the commission and limit your remarks to no more than 3 minutes. Do we have any public comment tonight?
No.
Nope. Okay. Moving on to number 4, the work session. Presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding future work sessions and an educational series related to principles and best practices of municipal planning.
Thank you, Elena Helton, City Planner. As you know, the City the Planning and Zoning Commission initiated a informational series to cover various planning topics, and we scheduled these meetings starting in October through March, and we've had some other committee meetings since then where we've had a lot of conversations about planning and long-range planning and what that means. And with the holidays coming up, we were recommending on rescheduling some of these till after the holidays and revamping them. And so in a little bit, I'll let Ken talk about some of the meetings that we had today and last week. And we'd like to incorporate some of that content into some of that first work session that we did, and then just kind of start from scratch. So I wanted to bring that discussion to the commission, get your feedback, and then open it up for any questions. This is the current schedule, and so what we would do is we would initially kick off the orientation series in January, starting with that, what is comprehensive planning and community visioning, and then just maintain the current order that you see on your screen.
I think it's wonderful.
All right. Thank you.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
that's good.
no-brainer, and particularly with as much scrutiny and attention this has, be very beneficial. How are we getting it out to folks to know? I mean, other than just a standard.
We are posting on the agenda, of course. We're putting it on our website, on social media. We also have an email list where during all those public forums that we had last summer, we had people sign up for future notifications on this planning process. And then we have just a general email list for people who are just interested to get notices on city meetings. And so we send it out to those two groups. And then, again, social media, next door, our website. So we try to spread the word as much as we can. And also, when we're doing these agendas, we send them to our local media group, KTRE, the newspaper, so if they want to pick up any of these, that they can. But in the future, I think we do want to provide more notice than we have been as far as like the number of days. And so really looking at a schedule and making sure that we give people at least a week or two to coordinate other items that maybe they want to attend, especially when we're looking at these other committee meetings that we're having. We don't want to have any kind of conflict where people can't attend both. So we need to do a little bit more coordination and scheduling to make sure we're not overlapping with anything else.
I nominate Ken doing a TikTok video. He has a pretty large following.
So interesting, I saw where someone was doing a TikTok series for community planning, and I was like, you know?
It's the way we communicate now. Some
Only if you do the only if you do the choreography.
Shannon, I nominate you to be the spokesperson for that.
I'll
You got-
delegate to my wife. She's a
Okay.
good mover, so.
You bring the dance moves.
Are we doing anything in terms of like Spanish information as well for the Hispanic community?
No, not right now. We do have a lot of Spanish translations for our upcoming notices for meetings.
Okay.
But we don't have a Spanish version of these.
Okay.
Whenever we actually create our public participation plan, when we get the consultant on board, they'll create a much more detailed strategic plan, and that will include having translations for everything. I don't know if it'll include audio translations, but it will include written translations of all of the content that we the written content that we share with the community.
Okay.
Also, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but during the public forums, we actually had purchased some audio equipment where people could wear headphones, and then they had a transmitter, and then you had someone in another room watching the meeting and translating for people in live during those sessions. So we're going to offer that at all of our future community engagement meetings whenever we're actually going through the formal planning process. So that'll be available along with the written content.
Awesome.
Oh, it's like the UN or something.
I hope not.
That might be a little extra.
Yeah. And I will, to piggyback on that, we had our first official meeting of the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee today around lunchtime, and started digging into what's in the current plan as our first step. And we're meeting at the rec center / library. There's a kind of meeting room in between the two. And those are going to be the second Thursday of each month.
Yes, at 3:30, and they are recorded. So we'll be uploading that video and audio to our website.
Yeah.
And Juan's keeping minutes for us, so we'll have written minutes to upload as well.
But we've started off pretty well, I think, over there. We'll see once we get more into the weeds.
Stakeholder?
It's a steering committee, so it's like all the everyone who's been nominated by different
Gotcha.
council members. So there's pretty good representation of the community, I think.
Yeah, we also have representatives from SFA, the school district, some of our other boards, Park Advocacy League, Women's Federation, and a couple of other groups, just to try to get a nice transect of the community, because those are people who can connect us with those other groups that aren't on the committee. So I think it's a good group.
And those are open meetings, but we only had one member of the public there today. So maybe more will show up as the process goes on. Any other comments on that? I like moving the schedule back to January and kind of starting there with a little bit more notice for everybody.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, well, we'll get that information out as soon as we can.
Okay. We'll move on to the next item. Consent agenda. We've got, the only item on the consent agenda is approval of the minutes from the November 29th special meeting that we held.
Pretty short.
Yeah. I'd make a motion to approve the minutes as written. Well, we got a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
I wasn't
Alright.
here to make one.
All right, and those minutes are approved. Moving on to the regular agenda. First item is consideration, discussion, and possible action on items removed from the consent agenda by commission action. We did not remove anything. So we'll move on to B, which is the final plat. Consider approval of a replat of Lot 4 of the OTR subdivision located on the north side of Power Street and east side of North Sanders Street. The request has been submitted by Bill Raspberry of Bill Raspberry and Associates, LLC.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Elena Helton, City Planner. This is a replat of a subdivision that the Planning and Zoning Commission approved in September of this year, along with a couple of waivers to block length. And this is a replat of just that Lot 4. That was that conservation and preservation lot that was dedicated as a lot to be preserved and maintained for habitat, wildlife management, drainage, things of that sort. If you remember, the topography is pretty severe on this lot. There's some water features that potentially could be waters of the U.S. and some significant drainage issues. And so it's wasn't really feasible for that property to ever develop. It made more sense to preserve it over time. There is a small piece that we're going to talk about in a minute that is the only relatively flat piece of the property that could be used for something, and we think what's proposed is the most appropriate use for that property. But what you see outlined in yellow, that is the Lot 4 that was platted with the previous subdivision, that is that conservation lot. The original subdivision included about 10 acres in addition, which was that kind of rectangular shape that you see that fronts right along Old Tyler Road, and a couple of other smaller lots along North Sanders Street. So this is the Plaid Exhibit, and so there are two lots that are proposed. We have Lot 4A and Lot 4B. 4B is about 2 acres. That's the piece that's being subdivided in order to develop a utility transmission facility for the extension of fiber and internet. And there's also going to be a 50-foot easement that will run over 4A to connect to Power Street to the south. And so the land area that will be taken up is relatively small, and the actual area needed for that type of development isn't significant. It doesn't require a lot of parking. It doesn't require a lot of other infrastructure. It's simply a building and then transmission facilities for the expansion of our fiber network. And so the remainder of the lot, again, is that 28.578 acres that's shown as Lot 4A that will be preserved. If you remember, with the original subdivision, we actually added a note that any modification to the boundaries of Lot 4 or changes to the permitted uses had to come before the Planning and Zoning Commission for approval as part of those conditions that were granted for the variances for the block length. And so that's why we're bringing this back to you for your consideration. Again, this is just a map kind of showing you the water features that are on the property. There's a creek that traverses on the south side. There is a body of water. And then there's significant floodplain that runs just along the northern boundary of the property. The variances that were approved in September included block length to the areas that fronted along Power Street. There were actually 2 different block lengths and then Old Tyler Road. And so we just wanted to recap those. Staff still finds that the proposal meets the intent that was originally proposed with the waivers from September of 2021. And so we do recommend approval. It does meet all of the other subdivision regulations as it relates to lot design and layout and zoning. And so with that, we'll open it up for questions. The applicant is also available. And that concludes staff's presentation.
And that right now is R4, you said?
Yes, the property is zoned multifamily. Everything that you see outlined in yellow, that is zoned multifamily. So the proposed use of the 2-acre lot is a permitted use within that zoning district. And so there won't be any other zoning approvals needed for the development.
What's going to be done with the property?
So they are going to be developing a utility transmission facility specifically for the purpose of expanding our wireless internet and fiber network. And so I can let Irie Montez, the applicant, he's in attendance. He can provide some more detail to that if you guys would like to address him. But beyond that, I don't want to speak too much on behalf of the applicant.
Yeah, we'd like to hear from the
all right.
applicant.
Thank you, Elena. My name is Irie Montes, and I own the property. That's requesting a replat. Any questions?
What are you going to do with the property? Just out of
Okay.
curiosity.
The 2 acres is a company called Conterra is contracted by Verizon to bring fiber to their towers. And they're going to put a major hub in Nacogdoches on that 2 acres. They originally started talking about just 100 by 100. Then I took them over they wanted to go over on the power side, and I said, well, if you wanted to do it big and right, they were talking about going to Lufkin, and I said, instead of going there, why don't we come over here? And they said, show me what you got. And I said, there's this 2 acres. Laid it out for them, and they said, we like it. And I'm in constant contact with the president and the chief counsel of Conterra. They're excited to bring fiber to this town. And what Conterra wants to do is to fiber up every business, city, hospital, school, commercial business of every kind. And Verizon, what they're looking for is to provide cell service, better cell service in the area. And I think those would be good assets for Nacogdoches.
Absolutely. Any plans for the other 28 acres at this point?
The plans for the 28 acres is that I've spoken to the gentleman over, takes care of the historical, and Brian over there, and also talked to Elena about donating that further northern tip over to the city to help refurbish, revitalize the Old Mill Pond. It's of no value to me, but it would be hopefully an asset that the city would like to have to make that Old Mill Pond back where it used to be.
Thank you, Mr. Montez.
Do you know if Verizon plans on putting any towers in that area in the future, or is it just gonna be a building with wires coming in and out of it?
There's, as far as that 2 acres right there, they go underground in that 50-foot easement, and they tie into a power node that's sitting on site already there, waiting to be hooked up. There on Power Street. And then right across on the property that's owned by the city now, the water area, a tower's already on site.
Oh, okay.
They're gonna fiber that one up.
So, as far as you know, this Conterra company is looking to come in and compete against Suddenlink and some of the
There's
other.
no competition with Suddenlink.
Yeah.
Suddenlink is a mess.
That's a kind
I
thing
mean,
to
if you
say,
have
though.
Suddenlink, does anybody have Suddenlink? Okay.
I'm asking
Anybody?
because I'm interested in
Well, I'm
a
trying to
competitor.
say is
That's what-
that whenever I heard that Conterra, you read about what they do. And what they bring to town. They're already in Tyler as we speak, and they're fibering up people all over the place there. I'm in negotiations with them in Lufkin to put a little small place over there because the big place is gonna be here in Nacogdoches. So, spoke with Elena about it, and I said I pushed hard about bringing it here. And their comments to me is that if it doesn't go through here, he said, we want you to find a bigger place than Lufkin for us. And so I told them tonight, we're gonna present it, see what they say. That's in your hands.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I did actually have a question on this property again. Where would it be located, Elena?
The
Two
town-
lot, yeah, the actual Cantera,
Okay.
2 acre property. Along-
Okay, as far as, you come in, there's about 106 foot of frontage.
From what,
That fronts, Sanders Street, which is right across from Brooks Quinn Elementary School.
okay,
Okay, they would have a lane that would cut them back. Now, as far as the actual layout of that 100 by 100 foot, fenced-in area, that's gonna hold the power bank, that's yet to be shown to me. But the back area, the bigger chunk back there is where they would put all their, just like you see it in Lufkin at Consolidated Communications. They have rolls of fiber and stuff. They also will have trucks that will be coming and going in that area. Very little, but enough to not be a traffic hazard, but to have enough to, as they need fiber in the area, it's readily available.
okay.
And Lily,
Excuse me.
no, sure. You can see the lines outlined in white. It's that, it's that L-shaped piece.
Okay.
That's the the actual 2-acre lot, and then you see the two parallel lines that connect that to.
That would be a roadway for it?
That's the easement.
The easement for it, okay.
And it's not a roadway easement, it's just for the fiber lines.
Okay.
The access would be from North Sanders Street, the vehicular access.
Well, as far as, at Powers, there already is, there's two, yellow, posts sticking up, concreted in, and that's where they already have fiber laid to.
Okay,
So they're gonna take that from that point and go underground through that 50-foot easement, to the main hub that's gonna be in that 2-acre spot.
sure.
Exactly where it's placed on there, I've not seen it. I mean, they're just saying, you know, you get the 2 acres, get it, rezoned, replatted, whatever needs to be done. And, they're not paying a whole lot for it, but it's a lot to me is to have them here
Sure.
in Nacogdoches instead of Lufkin for a change.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask you as well, Mr. Montes, is, you're a developer, correct?
No, I'm a
You're not?
CPA.
CPA, okay, but why did you choose, do you have many properties in Nacogdoches?
In the city of Nacogdoches, very few.
Very few, okay,
I own a house here in town,
okay,
about 2,000 square footer.
okay,
I'm buying 11,000 square foot of building downtown on East Main.
okay.
I own a few things, yeah.
Well, I was just wondering why this particular, plot, you wanted to actually put it on here as
No,
opposed
that
to
was
anywhere
not
else?
my choice.
Oh,
It- They first approached the city,
got it,
and with the way the wheels turn in that city process, you understand how it works, is, someone reached out to me and said, well, can you get it to happen for them, because we want it to be here too. I said, well, yeah, how much do they need? And they said, well, you know, we want it 100 by 100. And I asked them, kept on talking to them, I said, well, what are you gonna do with it? Everybody wants to know what you're gonna do with it. And, they said, we wanna put just a little hub here and just go on down to Lufkin and put a major hub. I said, let me show you something. I said, just forget about Powers access, because they wanted to be over on Powers, because that way they didn't have to run that 200, 300 foot underground to get to where they wanted to be. They wanted to have that hub station right there on Powers. Been a lot easier and simpler to do it that way and take it over to Lufkin, because the place they showed me over there, it would fit there too. But I said, let me see what I can do. I know most of my business was in Lufkin,
okay,
CPA World Accident Roadie. I was a partner there until I was 49. I just kind of got ready to do something else. So, yeah, I develop and build a little bit.
okay,
Spring Creek's one of my projects.
that's what I thought.
Yeah,
Thank
and I've
you.
got 4 other ones too.
You kin to Michael and Matthew?
They're my cousin's children. Yeah, yes, sir. That's Bennett.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Also, Rhonda was Uncle Tucker. Great Uncle Tucker was my partner in Accident Roadie, and then Lauren, her brother, went to school with me, and Wesley worked at NIPCO. And whenever I was going to college, I worked at NIPCO with Wesley. That's a fine family, yeah. You have any questions?
It's clear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your opportunity.
Wait, I did have one more question on this, on street view wise, all these, little areas right here that are, numbered, do you know what's currently standing there?
Yeah, so there's several single-family homes that have been constructed along North Sanders Street.
Okay,
And so those are those kind of gray squares. Those are the addresses.
okay,
And so those were built earlier this year. Well, some of them were existing, about 3 or 4 of them were built earlier this year.
right, and I remember looking over that, wondering if they've actually been built or not, or what's been, some of them are empty lots that are going to be built for homes, correct?
Well,
Can I address that?
yes.
Sorry, Mr. Montes.
As far as, I saw one of those homes. It's 1,100 square footer for $138,000.
Okay,
Okay. Right next to it, to the right of that one, they acquired lot number 2 See, only lots 1, 2, and 3 are platted. And, they're homes on all the lots now, and those will be rentals homes. And I'm also gonna, on Wade Street, which is 2 streets down, which is a totally different thing, I'm putting 8 more, rentable, nicer homes over there, because area hopefully will be, cleaned up, spruced up, and made a whole lot better than it is right now. Have you ever been through there?
I have,
There's a lot of trash and stuff that can be cleaned up.
yeah.
And there, you know, there's a lot of people proud of what they've got over there, and there's one place over there we all know is not a good place for anybody. And as far as, we're just trying to help that area be what it can be. Because it's right there by a major school, and a lot of good people live there, and we wanna make it be better if we can. I can't do it all myself. We need the city for code enforcement, police, fire, all the services that y'all have at your disposal. But the
Okay.
people up there deserve that, I feel.
Absolutely.
But my goal there is to, in the area, I'll have 20 homes on Wade. I also, that strip over there on Old Tile Road, we'll have another 15. So I'm in the process of acquiring as much property as I can. There's a lot of houses going through there, they're pitiful. They've got no trespassing on them. You've driven through there, you see them. And they're rat infested, they're overgrown. And I approached the fire department as well as the city about finding out, and the tax office too. It's finding out who owns those properties, get those torn down, get them cleaned up, and put a decent house on there for a change. Time for somebody to step up and do something. So with your help, I'll be glad to do that.
Thank you, Mr.
All right,
Montes.
thank you so much. All right. Any motions? We'll get a motion before we discuss, unless you want to discuss first. Any discussion?
I mean, I do have a discussion just basically about understanding, bringing something in like that, what that will do, because we don't have any comprehensive plan really to work off of right now.
And can we get a motion in a second before we can open it up for discussion?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, you're fine. Just wanted to remind the commission.
We need to fix this one. It says discussion and then motion second.
I'll make a motion to have a
City
discussion.
council, and we know that they're all messed up.
That's a different board. It's fine.
I'll make a motion to approve the final plat for the replat of Lot 4 of the OTR subdivision as presented. Does it have a number? Turned off a bit here, hold on.
It's
Doesn't have a number.
agenda number 6B.
It's just agenda number, but it doesn't have a zoning number or anything.
It is multifamily R4.
Yeah. So I make a motion to approve the replat of Lot 4, the OTR subdivision, as presented to the commission in agenda item 6B.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion of that?
Here we go. In terms of the, overall use of where this is gonna be, in terms of in front of Brooks Quinn Jones, R4, bringing in a commercial area within this residential area, I'm all for business coming in and actually for competition to settling, most definitely. I do want to just have a discussion with everybody about how this would fit in to, since we don't have an actual updated comprehensive plan, how this is gonna look for future reference on how the south side will grow. So,
So we were actually talking about that earlier today during our committee meeting. So when we're looking at the comprehensive plan, a lot of the infrastructure that's discussed is infrastructure that's under the city purview, so things that we have control over. Electricity, fiber, those are franchise utilities, they're private.
Sure.
And so while we can work and coordinate with those groups, we don't actually have any direct kind of authority over those or as able, as far as like making investments. Now, it should be considered when we're looking at where we're investing infrastructure and where we're, promoting different types of development. But it's something that's normally just considered an existing condition-based data. So in the comprehensive plan, it'll reference fiber, absolutely, and we'll talk about gaps and what our needs are, and it'll probably include strategies for maybe some public-private partnerships, but it won't be to the extent that we talk about other city infrastructure like water and sewer and streets and things like that. And does that answer your question?
it does answer my question, Elena, thank you. The other thing I wanted to know as well is if we do this whole thing about, approving this plat, does it have to go through the same process of notifying your residents around? It does not?
No.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Okay,
Yeah, and I think that's because, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's already zoned for a use that, the use that it's gonna be used for is approved in this area, so
okay,
as long as it meets the subdivision
Requirements,
sizes
yeah.
and with the exceptions we've made for the block length.
Normally,
It's approved.
a plat of this nature where you're just creating one new lot, you're not extending any kind of public infrastructure, that would normally be considered an administrative plat that would be approved by staff. But since this was conditioned with a note, it required it to come back before the Planning and Zoning Commission.
okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds to me like it's gonna be a pretty low-impact facility. It might be a few employees there occasionally, or just in and out to grab materials.
There's no business there.
It's just a,
It's just a fenced-in area, and trucks will come and go.
for servicing.
Yeah, but there's no business transaction.
Got it. Okay. That's good.
All right, so the motion is to approve this item as presented to the commission. Any other comments before we vote? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Montez.
Thank you.
And we'll go on to agenda item 6B. Consider a variance to the sign ordinance for a freestanding sign that exceeds the maximum allowed height requirements, maximum sign area requirements, and minimum sign setback requirements. It's the triple threat for property located at 2615 North Stallings Drive. It's been submitted by Dr. J.T. Roberts of Roberts and Hatchett Partnership. And it's case file SVO 2021-04.
All right, thank you. Like you said, Chairman, this is a variance for a property located at 2615 North Stallings Drive. It's located at the southeast corner of North Stallings Drive and Northwest Stallings Drive. It's also zoned commercial. It's surrounded by commercial development to the northeast and west. There is some agricultural land zoned to the south. That's actually city property. That's the landfill. There is no single-family residential zoning or development in the immediate proximity. And so this property is subject to the commercial standards that are found in the sign ordinance. This is the location of the TA Express. It's the travel center that includes the fried pie shop, Denny's. This is a full-service truck stop. It includes shower facilities, laundry facilities, dedicated truck lanes, and fueling facilities. So it's a little different than just your typical gas stop. It does include additional amenities specifically for large freight vehicles. So the sign currently is located approximately 92 feet from the back of curb from Northwest Stallings Drive. And it is about, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. 120 feet tall, and it includes a fuel sign that changes copy just depending on the fuel price changes. It also includes a Shell logo sign and that TA sign. And so this is just an image showing you the location of the current sign and then a street view. And so you can see from the street view that the elevation of the property where the sign sits is actually just about 4 or 5 feet above the roadway that is immediately adjacent to. So just to give you an idea of the elevation in the area and the topography and the proximity of the existing sign to the roadway. The requested signs, as stated, include variance to sign height, sign area, and sign setback. And so what we provided on your screen, these are the actual proposed plans that we included in your packet. The sign on the left, that's the current sign. The sign on the right is a proposed, so you can see the scale of the before and after. We also provided a table that shows you the different sign standard on the left. In the middle is what the code actually requires based on what's proposed. And then on the right, that's the actual proposal. So for sign height, the code requires that you place your sign 1.5 feet back from the back of the street curb for every 1 foot in height that your sign has. So if you have a sign that's 50 feet tall, it would have to be at least 125 feet set back from the roadway. And so the taller the sign, the farther back it's set back from the street. There is an overall max height for all freestanding sign, and that's 50 feet regardless of how far the sign is set back from the street. For sign area, for freestanding sign, it's based on your street frontage. So the more street frontage that you have along the roadway, the larger sign you're allowed to have, and there is also a cap on that. So regardless of the amount of street frontage, any given sign for a commercial or industrial business can't have any more than 300 square feet in area. The setback for the sign, based on the proposed height, would be 180 feet from back of curb. And so for proposed, they're proposing to keep it where it's currently located at 92 feet, while still increasing the height, which would require an even further setback. So that this table just demonstrates what's required and then versus what's proposed. This property did receive variances to those different standards back in 2016. And so they also included variances to height, area, and setback. And so these are images of that sign package from 2016. It also provides a small site plan showing you the current location. They actually showed it 50 feet from the right of way, but it was built 92 feet from the back of curb. And so initially they received a variance to height again, area, and then setback. And so that's just a table demonstrating the variances that were proposed at that time. The different sections that are pertinent to their request again include the maximum area that's allowed for the sign, the maximum height, and then the maximum setback. So for commercial zones specifically that have a certain amount of frontage along our major roadways, and so 224 State Highway West, US 59, and the Loop, again, it's a maximum height of 50 feet, regardless of how much frontage that you have, or regardless of the setback where you place the sign. And then for maximum area, again, it's based on the street frontage with an overall cap of 300. And then for setbacks, again, for every foot tall your sign is, you have to place it 1.5 feet from the back of the street curb. So those are the pertinent ordinances as they relate to the request. And so on this slide, we just provided a comparison table to just visually demonstrate the variances that were approved in 2016 versus what's being proposed today. Again, the required or the maximum height of any given sign is 50 feet. The proposed is 120. Maximum area is 300 feet. The proposed is 897. The setback, based on the height, is 180, and the proposed is 92 feet. And so whenever we're talking about these different code requirements and the purpose of those, some of them are aesthetic, but some of them are also safety. So when you have a pole sign, the idea is that the setback allows enough room for, if the sign were to fall due to a storm or damage, it wouldn't fall into the roadway or any public area. And so whenever we're looking at these setbacks specifically, that's more of a life, health, safety issue. Whereas sign area and sign height, those are more aesthetics, but the sign height and setback work together. And so we'll get into that a little bit more detail, but I just wanted to briefly speak to how those relate to kind of the goals and objectives of the ordinance. So these are some site photos that we put together. So we wanted to show you the view from different sections of Northwest Stallings Drive as you approach the property. So what you see on your screen, the sign is actually highlighted with a yellow circle, and where we were at when we took that photo is indicated by the red dot. And so that's about a quarter of a mile south from the property, northbound. And so on the right, you can see those images, and you can see the sign, but there is some, it is blocked, and then there is some topography changes as well. So it's visible, but it's not as clear as it could be if the sign were increased in height or sign area. This is another photo coming from the opposite way, and we did have a typo in the PowerPoint. So this says 0.25 miles. This is actually about a half a mile north of the property, traveling southbound. And so you can see on the right just the top of the sign, but it is difficult to make out what that sign actually is. And so the applicant has stated that the purpose of increasing the sign height in the area is that freight vehicles require more time to cross travel lanes whenever they're trying to maneuver exits. And with the I-69 upgrade, there will be additional travel lanes added, and there will be additional freight traffic. And so in order to accommodate the timing and maneuvering that's needed for these freight vehicles to actually see the sign, change lanes and exit, the visibility that's there today isn't really meeting that need. And so with that, staff does recommend approval of the sign area and the sign height due to the special conditions of the upgrades to the I-69 and the different traffic patterns that we're going to see with that development. This is one of the only two travel centers along this corridor in the city that can accommodate those types of passengers and drivers with the facilities and amenities that are located at that facility. However, staff recommends denial of the location because the sign is actually taller than it is farther away from the roadway and to the city property to the south. So if it were to fall, it could actually fall within the roadway and block access and potentially create harm to pedestrians or drivers that are on that street. It also falls within the building area of the city facility to the south. And we did outline those in your staff report, but wanted to provide some visuals to demonstrate staff's concern, not with the sign height necessarily or the area, because we do think it's needed just because of the nature of the upgrades and how that's going to change the character of the area and the traffic patterns. But we do recommend actually moving the sign so that way it doesn't create any kind of safety or health hazards. And so again, this is just a summary of the variances that are being requested. The applicant is in attendance. If the commission should have any questions of them, and they also provided visuals in your PowerPoint to kind of demonstrate other facilities in other towns where they've had increase in height and area based on the traffic patterns, to kind of demonstrate the request and what kind of demand that's going to be created. So with that, I will conclude staff's presentation and open it up for questions from the commission. And if you like, I can refer back to some of these visuals.
So Lena, to be clear, the city is suggesting that we set it back further than 92 feet.
Yes. So we recommend that it be set back at least the height of the sign. So if it were to fall, it wouldn't fall into the roadway, wouldn't fall into city property, and create any kind of safety or health hazards. And so it would be essentially the height of the sign. That's how far back it would be set back.
And that was
addition.
Sure, and that was discussed with the applicant.
No, we did discuss reducing overall sign height and area, but at the time, the applicant wanted to move forward with the request as presented.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there, engineering-wise, any rating on what type of winds or like loads, side loads, a sign like this with this type of area can withstand before it falls?
I will refer to the applicant, but I will say that signs of this size, they do have to have an engineered foundation that's reviewed by our building inspections office, and then they actually go out and inspect the foundation prior to installation. And so in that permit, they do have to demonstrate that the foundation can actually support the sign. And I can't remember offhand, I apologize. I'm sure there is some wind load information in there, because that's taken into consideration when you look at the foundation and the depth of the pole sign. But if you'd like to talk about that in more detail, I'd like to defer to the applicant.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What is this guy doing? I know. I heard you say what kind of sign does he want, so I gave this for y'all, so y'all wouldn't think, oh my God, like he's building a monster sign. That's what the sign, is it in there? Okay. So it really won't be, as low as it sits right now, it won't be something that you're driving by every day and looking up at. We have structural engineers that come and,
Could you state
I'm
your
sorry, Brian Hatchett. I'm a pitch hitter for my father-in-law, so. But we do have structural engineers that come and we will drill piers down into the ground that will withstand any type, especially in this area, up to and including any hurricane force winds. I mean, those things stand. Usually they're on overpasses as well, so the winds get even higher up there. So it's a very stable, we don't want it to fall either. And we would provide all of that prior to installing.
Was there a particular reason why you didn't want to move it back to standard?
I wasn't part of that conversation. I think my father-in-law was. He's a little hard of hearing. I have no problem moving it back to the 120 feet, and I understand exactly what you're saying, and that would be fine by us.
Okay,
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't know, but yes, that would be fine. We have the room to do it.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it appears to me that these things are really heavily engineered.
Yes, sir.
They have a huge diameter at the bottom.
We go down about 30 foot into the ground with concrete. I
Really?
mean, you're done. I mean, the only way that thing becomes a poor engineering structure is if someone goes back, in case you'll ever get this again, and adds to it. If anyone ever comes in and says, I want to put more signs on my pole sign, you need a whole new engineering structure. So. And trust me, these are expensive. The only reason we're doing it is we're fighting topography and we're fighting a lot of safety. When we first built this particular station, it was just a local diesel travel plaza, just something we did. Travel Centers of America came to us and wanted to put a location in Nacogdoches. We did it. And now we're getting these guys that are over-the-road truckers that really require a lot of time to make this decision. And what we're hearing from them is either, wow, I almost missed you, which I don't like hearing, or, hey, I went down there and I turned around, and that turnaround in the middle of 59, which I don't like hearing. So I don't like either one of those options. The square footage, the only reason it has to increase is as you go up, things look a lot smaller when you get them up there, so.
Yeah,
So like it does create a hardship.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, those pictures are pretty clear. But you'd be okay with moving it back the required setback? I think it's actually 180 feet.
And Ken, staff would just propose that it be set back at least the height of the sign to accommodate some additional, the requirement is 1.5 feet, but staff would be comfortable with just requiring a setback, same height as the sign.
1 foot per.
yeah,
That's no problem.
okay.
Any other questions? No?
Yeah, thank you all so much.
Any motions?
Well,
A motion to approve the city's recommendation. Is that what we need to do?
Are we making a motion to approve it, with contingent to the sign being moved back, set back? Because that would,
That's what she has, yeah.
Yes,
she's
so
laid out.
the recommendation would be that the variances are approved as presented with the condition that the
perfect,
sign be set back 120 feet from the back of curb.
okay. You wanna go ahead and do that again?
Do you want to repeat that?
Yep,
What you said, you do that. No, so I think it's just a simple recommendation for approval with the conditions outlined by staff.
Recommendation for approval, conditions outlined by staff.
second that.
All right, any discussion of that? before we vote? No? All All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, that passes as well. Moving on to agenda item 6D. Consideration, discussion, possible action on letter of support to update the Nacogdoches Comprehensive Plan and Downtown Master Plan.
All right, so this is the item that was heard in November, where we talked about putting together a letter of support to forward to City Council for the updates to the comprehensive plan and the downtown master plan. During that meeting, we talked about the scope of the project and how this process really is 4 plans in one. So you have the comprehensive plan, which is the city's citywide long-range plan guiding community development. That incorporates an I-69 corridor plan, which is an in-depth study of the I-69 corridor, including land use utility and design suggestions. The comp plan will also have a housing element, and so it'll take a deeper dive into our housing market by doing a citywide assessment and projection of our housing needs in the near and long term, and then also providing strategies for how to meet some of the demand that we're missing in our community. It also includes a downtown master plan. The last plan was done in 1974. It creates a vision and long-range plan for the downtown. This is a more detailed plan because it's a small area plan, so it will do a deeper dive into land use, utility, and design suggestions, economic market conditions, specific strategies for downtown revitalization, and recommendations for aesthetics, streetscape, and public spaces. And so the benefit of having these all done together is you have 4 studies and then 1 comprehensive implementation strategy. And so it'll integrate the strategies of the downtown plan, the corridor plan, and the citywide comprehensive plans along with the housing study to create some economies of scale and help the city be more strategic when we're planning our future investments and how we can have the most impact with the most efficient resources. And so again, the scope is just a more detailed breakdown of the scope. And so you have the comprehensive plan that takes about 12 to 16 months. The small area plans like the downtown master plan typically take a smaller time. So that's why we're proposing to go ahead and kick off the comprehensive plan first, because that'll really set the stage for all of the plans, and then coming in with the downtown plan just a few months after, having those 2 different citizen steering committees to help drive that process. And the hope is that the downtown master plan is finishing up just as we're wrapping up the comprehensive plan, so all of that is incorporated into a comprehensive implementation strategy. And so why do these studies? We've had a lot of questions about why should we update these plans, specifically these plans. Our current comprehensive plan was done in 2003. It's based on 2000 census. That includes population, age, income, race, and housing. It also was based on 1990 economic census, which was data that included industry, occupation, and employment. And so if you think about 2000, no one had iPhones. GIS mapping for the general community wasn't really a thing, and social media really hadn't evolved. And so when we talk about the way that we shop, the way that we live, the way that we travel, the way that we communicate, it really is a different landscape than when the original plan was done. I-69, that alignment was incomplete and the timing was uncertain. It actually showed I-69 in a different location than what's done today, and the timing of that construction really wasn't to a place where the city could plan for it comprehensively when this plan was done. Annexation and tax laws have changed. So with the recent, actually the one before last, the 2019 Texas legislature, they have changed our annexation laws to where essentially the city can no longer conduct involuntary annexations. And so if the city wants to annex property, it has to be with an application from the property owner or a vote from the community. And so essentially plans that we have made in the past about incorporating other areas into the city to increase the tax base, or maybe extending water or sewer facilities that one day will be brought into the city, those are no longer feasible. And so we need to look at that and make sure that our plans for growing and our plans for extending infrastructure reflect these new laws and the different restrictions that they've placed on all Texas cities. The ISD has expanded facilities. They've expanded facilities, they've built new facilities, and so that really has changed the landscape of not only our transportation, but where people live. And so we want to take a look at that and make sure that that's being considered in our comprehensive plan for land use and transportation, and just changes in development patterns. The downtown master plan, like I said, was done in 1974. There's been a couple of other plans since then, but they really haven't focused on all the dynamics of the downtown plan. The heritage development plan focused more on open space and connecting downtown to other areas of the city. And the streetscapes improvements plan really just spoke to landscape and some streetscape, but it wasn't a comprehensive downtown plan that addressed economic development conditions, land use, transportation, in the context of the overall city. So we also provided a recap of our RFQ process. We received 13 RFQ submittals for the downtown plan, 10 for the comprehensive plan. Several of those were twofold, where a consultant firm submitted for both. We had a panel interview of 3 finalists, and then we conducted a work session with City Council with DTJ Design, who was the finalist that we recommended to move forward with both of these studies.
I had a quick question. Who was present at the panel interviews for the finalists?
Yes, let me get to there. So the panelists included five voting members. So we had our city manager, Mario Canizares, Larissa Philpott, president of NEDCO, Dr. McHale with SFA, he's the economic chair, Jessica Sal, she's our Main Street and Historic Sites manager, and Brian Bray, director of community services. Myself and Steve Bartlett were also present as a resource, but we did not rate or grade any of the submittals, but we were present and helped facilitate that discussion. And so you had reps from city management, SFA, NEDCO, and then our downtown and historic sites.
Did any council members attend any of the panel interviews?
No.
Were they invited?
No, typically these are a staff-driven process. It's not traditional to have city council involved in RFQs for comprehensive plan.
This isn't a typical thing, though.
No.
I have a question on the down-selected finalists. Were they within 10% of one another, or on cost, total cost?
Oh, yes, and thank you for reminding me. So I was able to find that information. So whenever you're doing an RFQ, you can actually solicit specific budget information. You can whenever you're going through the formal RFP process, but as an engineer, they actually can't bid for or bid competitively against other firms in the way that I think we typically see for infrastructure projects or things that require like a lot of design. And so when we had these consultants come in for a final interview, they provided a range. And so they had a low end and a high end as far as what those plans could cost based on the level of public input, based on kind of the bells and whistles. If you wanted to provide some additional, just some additional elements of a comp plan that maybe some other cities don't do on a daily basis. So I know that at our last meeting, you requested the cost that was initially proposed by the consultant, but whenever I looked back, it was actually a range, and so I wasn't sure that it was going to actually give you the information that you were looking for as far as the difference between what was initially proposed versus what we ended up with, because the final proposal is within that range. And so that high end, I think, that you see is based on the initial public participation that we requested. If the commission would like, I could still provide that information, but it's, again, the final contract that will be taken forward, the cost that's proposed is the cost, is within the range that was initially proposed by DTJ as far as the low end and high end. Does that make sense? So I'm trying to think offhand, I didn't bring it with me, but the low end was $350,000 and the high end was $450,000. And so
to these 3 finalists?
no, so specifically for DTJ.
For DTJ, okay.
And so that was a scale based on kind of the bare bones, without any kind of bells and whistles or additional public participation, with the high end being a more developed, detailed, more public engagement plan.
So in the 3 finalists, what was their range? And was it similar to DTJ, or, and I guess a follow-up to that would be, how does the city determine value?
So whenever we had these scoring sheets, we broke down different elements and gave them percentages. And so we looked at cost, and that was a smaller percentage of the overall grade that these consultants received. We also, one one of the larger portions of that grading scale was approach. So we wanted to make sure we had a unique approach to the project. We didn't want a cookie cutter plan. We didn't want someone to just pull something off the shelf and just replace the name with Nacogdoches. We wanted something unique that was catered to our community. And so approach and methodology was a big piece of that grading scale. Also experience and background. And so we wanted to make sure we had a firm that has done these plans and done successful plans in other cities, and then proposed a schedule and timeline, and then the budget was included in the overall grading scale, but it wasn't, it was probably actually one of the more smaller percentages because we wanted to make sure we were focusing on value and experience versus cost. And so what I propose to do is next week, actually, I think we can get this to you by Monday. We'll actually provide you that grading scale so you can see the different percentages, and it's in the RFQ as well. So you can see the different percentages. I wish I had it with me. I apologize. And then you can see the scores, and we haven't provided all of that information to the public yet because we're still negotiating that contract. And so we do have to be careful what we release and what we don't. But we will share those presentations with you, and we'll share that grading scale. And so you can kind of look at it for yourself and provide that evaluation. But it's not going to be the type of detailed scope of cost that you've seen with some of these more recent presentations. It's going to be an overall range. I will tell you that, and I can't remember offhand, but there was one firm that was exceedingly expensive, like excessively. Staff felt it was excessively expensive based on some of the other submittals. But again, that the percentage of the grade for the cost wasn't as large as some of the other elements that we were looking for.
So Elena, in terms of your quantitative, formulaic approach to it, how far off were the other ones? I mean, do you remember the percentages for each one of them out of these three?
I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay.
But Lily, what we'll do is we'll put a package together for you.
Okay.
And we'll get it to you by Wednesday.
Okay.
And so we'll have the final scores of those three firms in a table, so you can see what those different elements were. We'll give you the percentage, and we'll provide you with copies of those presentations.
Okay.
One of the firms that you spoke to that was outrageous or seemed to be outrageous, were they one of the three finalists down selected?
I don't remember offhand, but we'll provide that information.
Thank you.
Yeah, just, I think since a lot of public questions about the process have centered on the cost of it, is there like a, I don't know, a City Planners Illustrated or some sort of magazine that would go, hey, here's what people are paying for
Yeah.
comprehensive plans in Texas? Is there, for
Yeah.
cities that are 30,000 people with a university, anything like that? Where you could tell us what an acceptable range is for these types of plans? And I know we're doing more than a normal plan, so.
So usually when cities are going through this process, they'll kind of do like a survey. They'll look at other cities of similar size that have done recent comprehensive planning and look to see what they paid and the scope of those plans. And so try to get an idea, a ballpark of what they're going to be looking at. Now, every plan is different because every community is different. And so some plans may have, your traditional chapters, environmental, housing, transportation, land use, but some plans go much deeper and will have additional neighborhood plans for 2 or 3 subdivisions that'll, almost like a downtown plan. And then you have some that have additional chapters that you wouldn't see in like our comp plan. So some comprehensive plans talk about the social fabric of the community. They really go more into social services and focus on things that you wouldn't traditionally see in a city. And so everyone is different. So it's not necessarily an apples to apples comparison. We did look at other cities of our similar size and character and what they had paid. For instance, Lufkin recently completed a comprehensive plan in 2018. They did pay, I want to say it was between $200 and $300 for their comprehensive plan, but it was just the comprehensive plan. It did not include in-depth study of the I-69 corridor. It did not include an in-depth study of downtown. It did not include a housing needs assessment. And so whenever you look at the scope as far as our plan and what they did. Yes, ours is more expensive, but we're getting a lot more for our money, I think, than what they did. They're just very high level and didn't really get into the weeds that ours hopefully will. Huntsville also recently completed a comprehensive plan. They had one public meeting, and so their cost was much cheaper, but the level of public engagement that they did was a fraction of what we're proposing with this one. And so we really want to make sure that we're not just having one meeting, collecting data, calling it public engagement, and then saying it's the community's plan. We want to have as much vetting as we want, as much vetting as possible, which is why we've recommended the steering committees. We're going to do the online digital engagement. We're going to do the meeting in the box. We'll actually provide resources for the community to have their own meetings. And so we feel like this really is above and beyond what you would normally see in other cities who traditionally just do a comprehensive plan and don't include the other elements.
Okay. I want to clarify for public record,
yeah.
because this is recorded. You said Lufkin paid how much?
I think it was somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000.
Okay, just making sure the 1,000 was there so that people won't be
Yes.
infuriated.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
I'll verify that, Lily, and we'll include it in that email that we send you.
Okay.
We'll be copying both.
Other question, Elena, is have you ever worked with this design firm before?
No.
Have you, in your previous experience in other cities, has anybody else, have you been able to vet them with anybody else that you've formerly worked with?
So part of the process for reviewing these submittals and grading is we actually do reference checks. And so they provide a list of previous experience and contacts. And so we call those people directly and ask them how the process went, how they interacted with the community. Was it successful? Would you hire them again? Just like a job application.
Sure.
And so these are people that also work in city planning and city management and similar roles. And they're pretty forthcoming about these consultants. And so we did go through that process. Now, I didn't know anyone directly
Sure.
that worked with a consultant. I didn't have a personal relationship with anyone, but I know that there were some people who worked in other cities that I think other staff members may have known. I think whenever you work in planning or city management long enough, you get to know a lot of different people. I've only worked in 3 cities, and DTJ is a larger firm. They typically do comprehensive planning for, a vast variety of cities, but not every day you have people actually conducting comprehensive plans.
Sure.
And especially with smaller rural communities, some of them don't even have a comprehensive plan. And so, especially for cities that aren't experiencing a lot of growth, or maybe their plans are different. And so, to answer your question, I didn't have a personal relationship with anyone, but I did know of these. I was familiar with the people and their roles and their experience.
Okay.
Lily, for the record, at the last meeting, I asked if anyone with the city or on the evaluation committees had worked with DTJ or any of these folks,
Good
and the answer
to
was
know.
no.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
outside of, I think, clarification that there were subcontractors that are local subcontractors, I believe 215,
And KSA.
KSA, which are local, which
Okay.
I've worked with them too, so.
Thank you.
And the other, I'm sure the reference checks were good, and that's why they were the finalists, is that?
Yes, so it's just like a job application. People usually don't put down references that they don't think are going to give them a good recommendation, but we did require that they be relevant and current. And so the ones that they provided were current, they were in cities that we were familiar with, and we did receive good references for those.
Okay.
I think the cost, although it may not have been a big factor for grading, probably for procurement and strategic reasons around that, but it is relevant, obviously, to the community. And so I think seeing that would be important.
And I will note that DTJ was the only finalist that had submitted proposals for both plans, for both the comprehensive plan and the downtown plan. So we did feel like we were getting economies of scale. Whereas if we would have picked a different consultant for each plan, it would have been more expensive and would have required more coordination. So that was something, as far as like strategic, being strategic and coordination, that was something that was considered in the process. All
I also
right.
think it's smart, sorry to
Oh, no,
interject,
no, go
just
ahead.
because they would have a better understanding of the town anyway, so.
Yes, and I think that was one of the reasons why this firm maybe have graded above the rest were because they had that local talent and that local knowledge with the subconsultants that really goes a long way. especially when you have engineers who have never looked at our infrastructure. They're not familiar with our, our transportation counts. When you have firms that have been doing it and helped design it and build in the community, I think it really changes the game as far as the type of quality data that you get, and then that relationship that they have with the community as well, and providing that additional input.
I work with KSA and 215 today, and they've done great work.
Good.
And KSA's done a lot of work on the new vision or build out of the airport proposal, so.
Awesome.
All right, so last time we also talked about the community outreach and engagement. So public participation is about 30% of not only the time as far as the process, but also the cost, because it does require so many man hours. It is a very intensive process. And so when you look at the contract elements, that is a large chunk of the time and also the budget. And this is just another breakdown of the schedule of fees. As far as funding sources, $50,000 is intended to, or is planned to be funded by the city's Economic Development Fund. And then NETCO is proposing to incorporate $50,000 for that market study. And then the general fund reserves, I'm sorry, so the net effect on the general fund would be $350,000. So you have an overall cost of $450,000, with the city general fund only seeing a net effect of $350,000. And so, like I said earlier, we've had several work sessions about this process. We've had a couple of community forums, some surveys where we've tried to collect some preliminary input from the community, just kind of general values and things that they'd like to see more of, things that they think could be improved upon for the community. And so during that process, we did hear several different conversations about support and the benefit of the plan, and also opposition. We included a fact sheet in your packet that went into those into more detail, but they include keeping a current plan relative in order to accommodate for change in the community, change in development, and just change in local and regional and national trends. Again, maintaining current data, so making sure that the factual data that your plan is based on is actually relevant, it's current, and then providing for public support. Making sure that the plan is actually representative of the current population, and that it reflects the current values of the community. As far as opposition, again, cost compared to other cities, that was a big concern. This is an expensive process. It's a process that all cities go through, and I think for a community of our size specifically, that is a large number. But when you look at comprehensive planning and you look at other cities, it is respective to those types of plans, the type of planning that the city is trying to undertake. There's also concerns about non-local consultants. There isn't a planning firm in Nacogdoches that does this kind of work, and DTJ specifically went above and beyond to include local sub-consultants to make sure that they had that institutional knowledge, and to help create some additional coordination of the process and help facilitate that public participation. There was also comments that the cost should be dedicated to infrastructure needs. And so I don't know how many of you have been keeping up with the city council agenda, but they've been meeting a lot to talk about CIP projects, to talk about infrastructure needs, water, sewer, drainage, the relocation of city facilities. So when you look at the needs for the city's infrastructure, the cost of this project is a drop in the bucket, and it will not have a major impact as far as trying to get the city where we need to be infrastructure-wise. And so those are just some bullet points of kind of the top three that we saw for support versus opposition of the updating the plans. And so tonight, we're looking for a direction to proceed with the letter of support as presented. At the last meeting, Ken did provide a draft, and then we also had it reviewed by our city attorney, just to provide some additional comments, and we provided that red line. And Ken, do you want to just briefly talk about the conversation with the city attorney and some of the items in your draft, and your just thoughts and comments on moving forward with staff's draft versus yours? Also, we have Word copies of these. I can pull them up, and we can actually have a working session and update and modify as the commission sees fit.
Yeah, actually don't know if that conversation may be covered by attorney-client privilege.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just kidding.
Good way to get out of it.
Two attorneys.
Well, wait, before we move on that, Elena, there is no, on the total cost, would there ever be like a surprise, there's an extra added cost? How often does that occur and, you know, or is this a set total comprehensive package?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've been negotiating is a not to exceed.
Okay.
So this project will not exceed $450,000.
Okay, got it, thank you. Sorry, Commissioner, you may.
No problem. Yes, so, really the one red line change, I don't know what page, is it second, almost second, third to last page?
Right before the fact sheet.
Yeah, right before the fact sheet. You know, and I may have been overstating a little bit on what we're required to do on our individual zoning decisions when the comprehensive plan just doesn't cover whatever we're dealing with. It either just shows it as rural or agricultural or, you know, undeveloped land, and we know, hey, that's where I-69 is going to be in 10 years. That was the intent I had when in that paragraph. I don't think it's completely out of character or incorrect to say that we do have to make case-by-case determinations, looking at, okay, what's gone on in this area in the past, and what do we think is going to go there, but we don't know what the intent is for that area of the city.
Well, this letter's obviously symbolic.
It is.
So why is the city attorney weighing in on a symbolic letter?
So
don't
the reason the city attorney wanted to review the letter, because this letter will be evaluated and analyzed by the general community. We just wanted to make sure that it didn't have any kind of legal concerns. Ken, do you want to elaborate on that?
Well, I think there's some concern that since we do make decisions in here that have property use tied to them, where individual owners could be possibly upset about the decisions we're making, or neighbors could be upset about the decisions we're making about the neighboring property. If we're saying we don't have enough guidance in our decision-making, does that call our decision-making into question? Does that make sense? As far as, I'm not saying it's akin to the prosecutor who's found planting evidence on a defendant. Do you go back and throw out all their cases?
Yeah.
But
Fruit thing, whatever?
but yeah. But I think the idea is that it could call or raise an issue or give someone an issue in a lawsuit against the city. I think that was
And I do, I'm sorry, Ken, do you mind if I interject? So when we're looking at the comprehensive plan, I think oftentimes people akin, you know, compliance or accordance with the comprehensive plan to mean just the future land use map. And so when it says in accordance with the comprehensive plan, it also means those goals and objectives and land use policies. And so in the land use chapter, it actually has some additional language that describes the land use plan as not being a parcel by parcel specific mandate. It's just meant to be a visual guide, and it even identifies there may be scenarios where you have a proposal that doesn't match what's shown on the comprehensive plan, and whenever you have a scenario like that, it's up to the commission and council with the direction of staff to identify if the proposal otherwise is in line with the land use policies, goals, and objectives of the comprehensive plan. So that's why oftentimes you'll see that the proposed zoning doesn't match the color on the future land use map, but it does further a lot of those land use policies and objectives, like infill and increasing the tax base and providing economic development and protecting neighborhoods and providing compatible development. And so there's several of those land use policies and objectives that are meant to complement the land use map. And really, the land use map, again, it's just a visual guide. there's even an element in there, and I believe I sent it to the commission a few weeks ago, where it talks about multifamily development is very market-driven, and it's hard to depict on a future land use map. And so you can have a multifamily proposal that's not reflected on the map and still receive a positive recommendation, just because sometimes our crystal ball doesn't work. And so we can't plan for everything everywhere. And so that's why you have those land use policies that say, all right, well, color on the map is single family, but is this going to create a incompatible development? Is this going to require the city to extend our utilities beyond our capacity? Is this development going to create adverse impacts for the adjacent neighborhood? And if the answer is yes, well then, it doesn't mean that you should make a positive recommendation just because the color's on the match map. So I just wanted to highlight that. I think people confuse the map with the zoning because they are similar categories, they're similar colors, but the comprehensive plan is dynamic, and it takes a lot of other things into consideration when we're looking at these different development proposals. So, sorry for the interruption, Ken, I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you.
In short, we live in a litigious state, so. So,
Yeah. So, I don't know if everyone's comfortable with something, in writing that we all are signing off on. And I don't think we should have it unless it's a unanimous agreement on whatever it is. That's my personal opinion.
I would agree with that.
And Ken, I did want to mention that the Main Street Board will also be considering a letter of support at their next meeting, very, very similar to this. And so just wanting to publicly provide that in the form of a
Maybe
letter.
it needs to be a more nebulous letter, a letter that says, yes, the city needs a new comprehensive plan, and we think you ought to go forward with doing that without all of the other verbiage.
Yeah, so the letter that staff put together was meant to be kind of aspirational in nature on purpose. We didn't want to get too technical into the weeds, and that's, I believe the version that Main Street is reviewing is more similar to that. And so, yeah, we understand that Planning and Zoning Commission uses the comp plan differently than the Main Street Board, differently than some of our other respective committees and departments. And so just trying to maintain some common language, but again, all of that is the prerogative of the commission.
I mean, I think we all support the plan, but the general public and their voice is saying, we want to be educated about what's going to happen. If we wanted to make some changes or edits to this letter, I would suggest that we also suggest to the mayor and city council that we are going to be wanting to educate the public as well, and what this could potentially be useful for the city of Nacogdoches as a whole. And just a short little snippet on that, but from what I've read, and I mean, I do agree with everything that is stated within this letter.
Has
So,
that letter been notified with the city attorney's comment? Or is that
Yeah.
what you wrote, Ken?
So I did just want to pull up the staff draft letter. Again, what we included was, thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Well, the first one in here is the one that you wrote, isn't it?
That was the original one that we presented, and then we included Chairman Debish's letter, and then just the short comment from the city attorney.
Short comment being the red line?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And so what we wanted to capture were just some of the main issues and key trends that we were hearing, not only from the commission, but the community at large. And so, we wanted to highlight that these plans are tools for the city. They help us update our other ordinances, including utility capital improvement projects, our zoning ordinance, our historical architectural design guidelines. All of those should be in reference to these long-range plans that speak to the overall community vision. So when that's not up to date, it's hard to update our other current plans that we do use on a daily basis, because it calls into question the relativity of those long-range strategies. And so This really, letter just highlights the different elements that were in the 2003 comp plan versus now, what the data was based on, some of the changes that we've seen in demographics and development trends, changes based on the I-69 growth corridor, the kind of statewide issues that we've been having with housing in general, and then specific to Nacogdoches, and then the need to treat downtown as a high priority and really invest and revitalize that area. And so I don't think there's anything in here that's in conflict with anything that's been discussed by this commission, or really in conflict with some of the major themes that we've seen. I also don't think that Chairman Debish's letter is in conflict with any of the themes that we saw or highlighted in the staff's draft. And so staff's comfortable with either one. And again, this is just a letter of support. It's not meant to be end all be all, or something that's evaluated for future zoning cases or anything like that. It's just a formal letter of support to express to the community that the Planning and Zoning Commission agrees with the city moving forward with these long-range studies. So.
Well, I definitely support a city plan. I recognize we work at the, we work at the luxury and will of the city council, and I appreciate that position. I do believe that whatever we write and turn over needs to be written and turned over, written by us and not written by somebody else, or even checked by somebody else, because I think that takes away the validity of what we're trying to do, in my opinion. So, not, even though it's a red line, but just the mere fact that seems like we're going back to the people we're supporting, ask them to see if our paper's okay. So I'm not sure that makes sense to me.
That being said, I do think the edit that he put in makes sense, because it is true.
And this is just a recommendation, Commission, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand your point too, Shannon. I do want to also address something, sorry, Ken, do you need to say something? Okay. With the I-69 corridor that comes through, basically, what's that in terms of?
I'm sorry,
Here,
can you repeat that, please?
yeah, the I-69 corridor is a major factor within all of this, and so the letter of support. How long is that going to be taking to build with TxDOT, where, why, the public's going to ask, why the rush now?
Yeah.
If we have 10 years to complete this project, why are we not going to push it out and delay it a couple more years? As opposed to moving forward to this instant, this moment within the next year?
Yeah, so when the 2003 plan was done, I-69, the alignment had been finalized, the timing was really up in the air, but if you drive down South Street, you can see that things are happening. It's being constructed, it's in the air.
Sure.
So it's happening now. It's not happening in 5 years or 10 years.
Sure.
Yeah, and so there is no time to wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I came from Houston today, and I was surprised, I hadn't been down that way, how much of it from south of Diboll is there.
We need something, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, the benefit of a delay does not outweigh the good of what comes from moving forward now. I don't believe. And I've spoken to city, the council, the community members, business leaders, folks that have looked to this community to invest. And there's always the question of what does the city planning to do to address infrastructure?
Sure.
Talk to the city engineer, and he can't do anything right now without a good plan on paper to address that growth, both residential and commercial. So.
Well, and the plan really does, it provides strategies, but also makes sure that we're being fair. And so when we're choosing these projects, they're based on community input. It's not at the will of staff, it's not at the will of a particular council member, so it's not only strategic and efficient, but it's fair, because we've garnered that public input, and so people are part of that conversation. And so when we're talking about the money, putting their money where their mouth is, and investing in the community should have a say-so in that. And so that's part of this planning process is, if we're gonna spend $15 million on infrastructure, I'm not sure that it's wise to put all of that, in Waterford versus some of our other neighborhoods who maybe have a higher need. So just for an example.
Sure.
And so it's also about fairness, being equitable. And so, yes, money is a big part of that, being strategic, but also just making sure that whatever we're doing is actually representative of what the community wants.
Yep.
We've had I've had the benefit of seeing a lot of information, and the city has gone out of its way, in my opinion, to inform the community and give a vehicle to be heard. I'm a firm believer that the community belongs to the people, without a doubt. But the people know, and those people know what's best for our city and for growth. So, I think it's important. Commissioner?
So, just don't want anybody to be uncomfortable, and I want anything that comes out of here to be, that goes to council to be something that's commonly agreed upon, which does tend to make things simpler. So possibly what Ms. Carroll suggested is correct. Maybe we should do something very simple. It says we need a new plan. It's a problem for us and it needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I agree. I cannot speak, obviously, I do believe that we need to move forward with a city plan. I can't speak personally to the evaluation criteria or process that DTJ was selected, or if the cost is, I'm not a subject matter expert in city planning or comprehensive plans, et cetera, so I can't speak to the cost and is that good value or not. I've been in business long enough to know that I think can be of good value, and the cost doesn't seem crazy to me, but I don't know at the end of the day. But do I believe we need to proceed with a city comprehensive plan that's tied to a downtown plan and addresses I-69? You know, whether that, when they change that road sign to 69 is really irrelevant. The road is changing, as Ruth said. Diboll and Corrigan are gonna get left behind. The city of Cleveland is now a ghost town. If you drive through there, it was once a bustling small community on the outskirts of Houston. Although different here in Nacogdoches, I don't think we need to risk delay of moving forward.
And I wanted to ask, has the commission seen the flyover that was done back in, I think, November, maybe October, of the progress of the construction as you come into town, traveling north? Has anyone seen that flyover?
I've floated several times, so
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's
So there's an excellent drone video that really highlights just the impact.
Jason Reno, have you done it, or?
Yes, and so we will forward that to the commission. It's on YouTube. You can Google I-69 flyover, but it just
I'll fly anybody, if somebody wants to go up, I'll take them, and we go see Lufkin too. And
Yeah.
it's tremendous progress. I say Lufkin, the Diboll bypass.
Right.
It's amazing how quick they've moved on that.
I think that's just wise to include in the workshop, Elena.
Okay.
For public to see, and that's why I'm addressing it.
okay.
I-69 is moving rapidly, and I agree with Shannon that we can't, delaying this process isn't gonna help us by any means, but the public, because of the concerns that they've had, is just showcasing that, showcasing what we have discussed and saying we are going to educate you as much as we can. That would be in terms of good support for the public and good support for the mayor and city council to move forward with this.
And I think some people, the comments that we've heard is doing the plan will actually be a catalyst for change, just in general. And what we've tried to communicate is that if you want to have a plan to promote growth, or if you want to promote growth in your community, we need to have a plan for that to identify those growth areas. If you want to have if you don't want growth and you want to everything to maintain its current status quo, we need a plan for that. Otherwise, you're just letting things happen to you. And so whether you want to promote development, whether you want to limit development, either way you have a plan. Otherwise, we're just at the will of the market, and we're not actually being involved in the development of our own community.
You need a map to steer the ship.
So does this letter say that we support, just high-level support, moving forward with a city plan, comprehensive plan? What is it?
Well,
I guess
Yes,
that's-
attorney,
never
can
mind,
you-
I can sit-
it basically says that the current plan doesn't give us enough guidance to make decisions we need to as P and Z on a regular basis, mainly because it doesn't account for changes that have
Right.
occurred
Right.
in the community since 2003. It harms developers because there's uncertainty about where they can develop or because the plan doesn't allow for, or hasn't allowed for the extension of city services in certain areas. You can't build reasonably without a huge sunk cost in drainage or sewers and water. And then I-69 we have to plan for, and then I've added a paragraph about downtown, just because I think it's important that downtown doesn't get, that we have a good plan for how we want to develop it. Like you said, we don't want to be Cleveland and have a ghost town with nobody coming down here.
So not to kick the can down the road any further, what else would we want in here so we can get this done?
I mean, what I've just said, I've suggested.
Can we make how do we do this and just get it over with?
Yeah, so whenever, I apologize. Did any of the commissioners have their own resolution comments? So let me step back. We did send out Ken's draft shortly after the meeting and requested that the commission send us comments prior to this meeting, send us red lines. Did any of you have anything prepared or that you'd like to submit for review? Or, because we didn't receive anything digitally, but I know that sometimes, like Ken brought his to the meeting, and so I don't know if anyone had anything printed that they'd like to share, but we can delay this till January. We're gonna meet the second the second Monday. That will still be before this contract is slated to go to city council. And so the letter won't necessarily be part of the agenda, but we can definitely email it to the council prior to the
what
meeting
if-
where they're gonna be considering the contract.
What if we just took out that one sentence that the city attorney thinks is objectionable and leave the rest of it alone?
Well, he actually just added text. So it's like, it's 4 words that he added to supplement Ken's letter. And
I
really,
would be
it doesn't
okay with
change, it doesn't
taking out
change
that
any of it.
sentence, to be honest with you, because after I thought about it, I kind of agreed with his point.
Okay, yeah.
My point?
Yeah, well,
Everybody's point.
everybody's point, yes. So I mean, we could keep it as simple as just the first paragraph minus the last sentence, and unless you think it's important to have the other paragraphs, if we wanted to keep it very short.
I don't see why we would have to. I mean, it addresses everything that I think we need to address in terms of what a comprehensive plan needs. I mean, that's, in short, you're trying to educate the public as well, because this is public, as a letter of support, and the public should know that this is crucial to why we are doing what we're doing.
And Shannon, if I may, I think the main reason why our city attorney was concerned, because essentially the statement that I've just highlighted and then marked through, essentially has the effect of saying that the commission isn't following the comprehensive plan when making these evaluations. And so the ordinance requires, and so I think that's really the concern. Whenever you remove that sentence, the content and the context of what you're trying to communicate to council is the same. So I think removing that sentence doesn't actually remove any value or any of the actual content of what you're trying to communicate.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's just,
Yeah, I'm good with
Yeah,
that.
okay.
My position is if I speak to someone in the community and it almost seems coordinated, and I don't think that we need to be a little bit more genuine about what we're trying to do. That's just my humble opinion, but I understand the legalese and not getting us in a bind. I do understand that. But
Yeah, I'd be fine with it, just removing that last sentence of the
Okay.
first. Or I guess it's the second paragraph.
I mean,
Any other thoughts?
Spell bureaucracy.
Does anybody feel like they wouldn't want to sign on to this?
No pressure.
No, I mean, just,
Mr. Mills?
It's just a letter of support.
Just a letter of support.
I mean, it ain't no laws for or against it.
yeah.
No.
Just a letter of support.
Doing our duties as public servants, I mean, this is, it's exactly
When you
what,
perfect it, you're gonna have some
you're gonna
people who
backlash.
have some negative
You
feedback
can't
about
make
it.
everybody happy.
No, but like I had,
Nice.
commented, should we put a little line in there that says with, public education or anything like that, just because it's coming from the P and Z? I mean, they plan on doing it anyways, we're holding lots of
The
workshops.
only thing is, it's not an endorsement of DTJ. I can't speak for
No.
DTJ.
I can't speak
This-
for that
all-
either.
All this is I do believe we need a comprehensive plan,
Yep.
I-69 study, and protect our downtown. I mean, it's very important to protect the integrity of our community, so, without a plan, you don't have that, so.
Yeah, and I'm planning on going to the January meeting. What I was gonna tell council is I support getting an updated plan. I have no idea what process you went through, but I voted for my council person, and I expect they did the homework and made sure that this is a good deal. And, they represent my interests on that. And so, but all I can say is that we need an update. Is this the best option? That's for council to decide.
Which precinct do you live in?
I'm in the northwest, I guess. Yeah, right on the edge. Yeah.
I'm gonna drive to Dallas.
Tonight?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he's gotta go.
Well,
Let's,
I've been up since 5.
There you go.
I
Oh,
flew
my
back.
goodness.
I flew back from Minneapolis, so guys.
Okay,
Let's move on.
so, do we have a motion to approve the letter, as set forth on the screen with that sentence deleted?
I make a motion to approve it.
A second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Oh,
No one
man.
opposed? Okay.
Oh, Shannon,
All of that, just for that.
well, the
Public
public
support.
knows that we are discussing it,
Okay.
so.
City council decisions on planning and zoning cases. Can you run through that real quick?
Yes, so this is an item that we added based on a request from Planning and Zoning Commission. So whenever we have a zone change that we take forward to City Council for final approval, we will be reporting the outcome of that to this commission. And so City Council did approve the concept plan for the Plan Development District for the property on Railroad Street. And the applicant will be coming back with a more detailed development plan. And so hopefully that'll be coming to you early next year.
Awesome.
Right.
I'll watch that.
All right, discussion and action on any future possible agenda items. Anybody want to talk about anybody got any other letters you want to write or anything?
Master plan.
I would like to write one.
Master plan.
All right, well, I think we'll adjourn there then.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for everything.
Hey,
Yes.
drive safely.
Yes.
Thank you.
No
Do you need a
future
Red Bull
discussion
or
on the
something?
master
No.